round pots are good for literati, for more unusual style of trees, single trees, although you can have groups in a round pot. Good if you've got a group of say 3 literati, not as a forest, but say literati. If you've got a really shallow pot, you can have, they're good for groups of forests in as well, but they're difficult in a round pot. You have to get the measurements right to do, but you can do it quite easily. But a round pot of this character and depth, as you know, drum pots as it's called, because the studs around the side, or stud pot, they're good for any informal type of tree. Literati, particularly, they're good in round pots. Freeform pots, you've had them before. I haven't seen any here for a while. I don't think Bob can get them, but the freeform pots, again, a freeform looking tree. Yesterday this looked like, this is just a loose branch, and that was, we've changed all this to bring it all up and bring it into looking really good. I think it belongs to the same person. We haven't repotted this, it's just in a growing pot at the moment. But quite a nice looking pine. It's a mountain pine, Pinus sylvestris. Nice, cute looking tree now. Yesterday it looked a little bit like a dog's breakfast. Now this is the effect of the saying about all this wiring that's been spaced. I'll just cover that again for a second if I can. It's much more difficult to bend to get shape in here because it doesn't want to bend fully where I want it to. It's hard to get any definition because the wire's stopping me from pushing it up. I like to get a bend there, but it's stopping me from doing it. So I won't do it. I don't want to kill it. Now, this is a tree in a bit of a paradox situation because when I was working on it, we were actually working from that side. And it wasn't until tonight when I knew the other side here is actually a better front. But actually this tree's got 3 fronts. It looks quite good from that side. But from this side it looks better. And all I've got to do to change that is to bring this branch around here. That changes it quite dramatically. There's also a view which we had from this front side too, through there. It could be done through there as well. That could also make quite a good front from that tree. So your trees will never finish. You may change your mind. I want to change your mind. If you change your mind, you get a new tree. You'll be happy for a while. You don't have to go and buy a new one. Yesterday during the work, the bark got a bit damaged. This was a corky bark up to here. So there's there on the front of that tree, right there's a bit of honest cheating for you. The bark's been glued on. The piece of the bark fell right off, so it's just been glued back on again. Wood glue will do, super glue, any of those.
Something that can move with the...
Yeah, it'll all move with the shape of the tree. It will eventually get pushed off anyway. The bark underneath will come up next year, it'll get pushed off anyway. So a tree which was potentially quite unattractive, unusual, doesn't fit the norms of left, right, back, but out of it has developed quite I think it's going to be a really nice, interesting tree for the future. There are problems with it. It's a thick branch here, it's divided branch there, but for now it's a good start to work on anyway. It'll look quite good in the future. I hadn't seen this variety before either until over the weekend. Everybody know what it is apart from the obvious?
know what it is, but I'm not saying unless somebody else wants to speak up.
It's again, it doesn't fit any of the norms. And when it was in the pot, actually, that was the front of the tree, looking at you from this side here. So all dough is turned around. It's one of the prunus family. It's a cherry. Fuji cherry.
Fuji Kojo no Mai.
Kojo no ma. To you too.
Prunus incisor.
Prunus incisor.
Flowering cherry.
Flowering
Traditional Japanese flowering cherry.
Flowering cherry. Well, I think it's a gorgeous little tree, and I didn't want to do too much work to it because you can get carried away and start wiring it too much, and then it doesn't look as interesting anymore. So I think it's really got it is a grafted cherry, but it's an old graft because the thickness of the trunk here is very thick, so it's quite an old grafted cherry. And the base is quite thick. Good curve, and by using a grafted tree, this will eventually grow out where the cut was made. By using this tree, even as a grafted tree, you won't notice it so much in the future. I think it's got a really nice a look of a broom style, but a more modern type of broom style. I don't want to look like the traditional broom style you see out of Japan, because we can't get it with this tree. So we just wide it simply out, the main branches, a few main branches just wide out very simply, to let it do the same thing. So hopefully when the show comes, it's still in flower. I'm sure there's a few flower buds here going to come on, but it's of great interest.
It's beautiful.
You don't always have to have trees that fit the normal pattern or design. Have something unusual. I think this is Kurt's tree, and I think it's a great tree. I think it's really will be a good tree in the future. The moss at the pebbles a bit grey, so just put a little bit of moss around the base so it breaks that harshness of the gravel of the tree. A bit of moss around there will make it look quite interesting. But I think it's a great looking tree. It's still got quite a long way to go, but ultimately it's going to be quite an interesting tree. It was the traditional big plunk here been cut back, so we've ginned this there. Gavin has got a design for it, which he's going to work on. Not me, he's going to be doing the work on it. But also, this is the effect that I want you to change. Instead of looking like a poodle cut, because it look like pom-poms, is to thin them out so you can see the main branch structures in the branches themselves. That gives age as well. By separating all these branches, and so you can see through those pom-pom looks, it can make the tree look a lot older. You got the drawing there, Gav? But unfortunately, to get to the next stage of separating all the branches, you've actually got to go through this stage. It can't all be done. It can't all be done in one go. So we have to go through this stage to get all this growth like this, then take to the next stage again. If you look in some of the, the Japanese books or any book you look there, you'll see most of their foliage is sitting down. Basically, a sketch for the future of the tree. So that we won't see this. The reason we left this wood on here yesterday, because if you look closely at him, this little man looks like a dragon's head. When you look up close, it looks a bit like a dragon's head. For now, we've left him on. So that's basically along the lines of the future for this tree. Okay, so let's take it from that to that, because it does go quite a way down in the pot. He and his wife live in a relatively small apartment, so they've only got a balcony to grow their bonsai, and he's got about 35 bonsai, but they're of world class. And I said to him, where do you grow all these bonsai? He says, I don't, I buy them. He says, I don't have the room to have an area and have trees in foam boxes or pots growing. He says, I haven't the opportunity to do that. So I want good trees. So he'll go to a show anywhere in Australia, anytime, he'll turn up and he'll buy a nice big tree. It might be a finished bonsai. It may be an unfinished bonsai, but if the material's there, he'll pay, and he'll pay the money. And a couple of years ago, we had a show on the Gold Coast in Brisbane, on the Gold Coast convention, and he won the best tree in the show. And it was a clerodendron, which is a tree you don't see it much at all down here in Sydney, but it's a clerodendron, which is a weed from India. It's related to the privet family, but the most spectacular looking tree. He wins awards from overseas. He's won the JAL award. He didn't get a trip to Japan, but he got some enormous, great prizes. A lot of money, a couple of $1,000s, I think. He got, he's won the Surtray Award, which is a European award, with his trees, because he'll spend a few $1,000s to get the right tree he wants, then he'll take them to the next level to make them really show-class trees. So it doesn't matter what you want to do. You know, there's always room for somebody else. I gave him my address, but he never came to see me. It didn't work. I tried it. So it doesn't matter where people are coming from, because there's room for everybody. You know, all of us. This is what we want: good material, good start. I think it's tremendous, really good. This guy, I'll just throw this in for you. This guy in Brisbane last year, the convention before, he had a suiseki, which, look, and when it was on display, it was in a cage, and it looks like a black cockatoo, and it's sitting on a carved Chinese branch of a tree. It looked absolutely. Did you see it, Maxine? In Brisbane last year, or the year before?
No, I wasn't at Brisbane, unfortunately. I didn't get to that one.
And this beautiful black, and it was to die for. And I said, gee, that's amazing stone. Where'd you get that from? He said, oh, I got it when he was in China before. I said, oh, it must have been pretty expensive, you know, thinking of, you know, $500, $1,000. He said, oh, yeah, he said, that cost me $4,000. I said, oh, that's good. He said, yeah, he said, I thought it was pretty good too. He said, so I brought it back. I was so pleased with this stone. And I had a branch from out the garden and stuck it on it. It never looked like a piece of dog dirt. I said, so I couldn't cope with it. I said, so what did you do? I said, where did you get the stand then? He said, oh, well, I sent the rock back to China, to a master in China who carves stands. And he carved this cherry tree as a stand with this black cockatoo sitting on. And it looks fantastic, the black parrot on this cherry with branches everywhere, you know. I said, oh, it looks great now. How much was the stand? He said, $4,000. And it took 2 years for them to make the stand, and it cost as much as the rock did. Now that's being keen.
That is king.
But he and his wife don't have kids, so it doesn't matter. That's their hobby.
That's
so
good
they
piece.
both like it.
I wonder if he'd like to swap that for a couple of kids.
Yes, it does.